Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Super Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. This is our weekly series featuring 10 great athletic leaders. Some are ADs, but all have a connection in our world of educational athletics. So before we meet today's guest, as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. You've heard me say before, these are all companies that I used as an athletic director, and I highly recommend that you check them out. So don't hit that fast forward button yet. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes as we give these great sponsors a shout out. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo, see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's history and highlight your outstanding student athletes. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks on a fundraiser and ended up with little, if any, return on investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success, and so will you. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms, snapraise.com. We'd like to say thank you to Gipper. Gipper's the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to show you how to create world-class marketing content to help you celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. Gipper.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also going to be your one-stop for things like scheduling, athlete eligibility and clearance, digital forms and signatures, working with parents. I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just great. And if you want to get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We'd also like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already hear from the complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. Athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they'll also connect you to the 98% of your parents and athletes that support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable piece of feedback to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. When I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. And we want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, and more customization. Hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Super Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. If you're new to the show, this is our weekly series. We have 10 tremendous professionals. Some are athletic directors, some are within the world of athletics, but they all have an opportunity to share their viewpoint, their perspective on issues that athletic directors deal with every day. Very excited for her first segment on this series to have back a friend of the show, Jayme Pendergast. If you listen to the podcast, you heard Jamie's interview. Gosh, I think that was back in November. I knew right away that she was somebody I wanted to add to this team. Jayme has a tremendous background in athletics. She is the director of athletics at Life University, and that's in Marietta, Georgia. Jayme, it's been a while, but welcome back to the Educational Lady podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We had a good time last time.
We definitely did. Your episode continues to get downloads. So you and I were talking before we started to record, and your program has in the last couple of years just experienced great success by any metric, whether it's wins and championships, playoffs, GPAs, et cetera. I think any athletic director would love to be in your seat right now. But then we talked about an old book. Hopefully, listeners are familiar with it. Good to Great. So things are going good, but uh, let's talk about some things that you're doing right now to maybe help your coaches, help your programs do even better. What's going on at Life with Good to Great?
Yeah, it's been an interesting conversation. I feel like when we had this, metaphorical startup athletic department, the focus was on growth, like growing our rosters, growing our facility space, and really hoping that success would come out of that. And we were lucky that of the success that we got. And now the conversation has really, really shifted to this concept that Jim Collins talks about. He talks about in Built to Last too, which is
Yep.
sustained
Mhm.
success. And it's while the two conversations are, I think, related, they're so different. Also, because hitting a goal. I think it was James Clear that said, if you want to hit a set goals, like if you want to win once, paraphrasing, you have to develop systems if you want sustained success and to hit those goals regularly. And so our conversation is really turning towards, what are the systems that, particular administratively, that we can set so our coaches can use those as foundations of really driving success year over year for their programs, defining what those are, tweaking them year over year. Um, and especially, as you kind of lead towards the front of the pack and people are out to, get you now rather than, you hunting other people, it's the conversation shifts. And so it's been really interesting for us as a staff to appreciate the success, but then feel some pressure and sweat it out a little bit on how do we maintain this, and continue to deliver this great experience to our student athletes. So that's where we're at, and I'm pulling a lot of content from James Clear and Jim Collins and a bunch of other authors and leaders that have done something similar.
Yeah, it's a challenge that I think any athletic director hopes to achieve. And once they're there, now they're, maybe reveling in it, maybe struggling in it as well. Um, I know it's kind of, boots on the ground time for you with some of your programs. What are some things you can share with our listeners that, you have done, with either program wide or with a particular coach to help them make that move? And if they haven't embraced it, to begin to embrace this idea of, moving from good to great. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, we are lucky to have so many different examples of programs that really started from scratch and hired a really talented coach. Honestly, that's the linchpin in all of this. And I'll use my two wrestling programs just as they're the best examples right now, or one of the best examples of sustained success. But we started wrestling, and it was just that we didn't have a wrestling room. We rolled out mats in the gym and hired two really great coaches, and I think they really dug in and found a way to, I think, break through and crack that success on that national scene, particularly. I think that's a linchpin in a lot of things is, getting your first finalists and getting people to recognize your programs, because that means a whole lot. I mean, good wrestlers want to go to a program where they can have that shot at that championship. And so for men's wrestling, Dalton Bailey was our first finalist. And, he kind of shed light on that this is a big time program and people need to look at it. And on the women's side, we had a bunch, but one of our big time recruit, Peyton Presson, she ended up being a 3-time national champion, but she was a linchpin in the changing over of our women's wrestling program. But it's interesting because I watched both of those coaches kind of grind out those early years, build the program's brand and reputation, get some big time recruits. For the men's side, I'll never forget Nasomi Pozo came in. He was a transfer, and that was just a whole different kind of wrestling that I've ever seen. Same with Peyton on the women's side. Track that attention. We got to that national level. Men ended up winning the national championship in 2021. And now seeing the year-over-year pressure that my wrestling coaches experience because they're there and now you got to maintain there is huge. And so, after those initial years, it was, well, we found him a wrestling room. We got him a nice $4.5 million room that's pretty personalized for them, that we feel like matches the quality of wrestling that we get, so that it gets to practice in a quality facility. Been able to raise some budgets, some scholarships, been able to get them some resources. But at this point, it's really fine tuning things, as you talked about. This is constant idea of constant growth, and talking with coaches at the end of every season. Like, it's about marginal gains now. It's not about these big leaps. And so when you're talking marginal gains and small tweaks that make a difference between second and first place, our women's team came in, both our men's and women's team came in runner up at the national championship last year, right? So what gets you from second to first, and those conversations are just so much different than what they were when we started. And it's about who are we recruiting, where are we recruiting from, what are the characteristics, what are the values, what are the culture pieces that stuck, what didn't stick. And those marginal gains they're frustrating because they're harder to chew on and they seem like minutia, but like when it comes down to a championship, like that's what it comes down to. So, and that's the spot that we're at right now. Same with my track program. Rugby's there every year. My women's lacrosse program has been the national tournament 4 straight years. It's been interesting. My women's soccer program had never made it to the national tournament, and hired a new coach this year, and their first trip to national tournament, they made the Elite Eight. And so it's, digesting that and figuring that out. And it's just changing the conversation. And it really, I think it's a bit more laser focused than like wide angle focused, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I love that you brought up the idea of marginal gains. I think going back to Jim Collins and Good to Great, he talks about, the flywheel, just getting it going and that dogged determination. It's not, as you said, these big breakthrough things. It's just you keep at it, you keep working, you keep grinding, if you will. And you and I were talking originally when your soccer team had made that breakthrough. I remember how excited you were about that. All right, for you as an athletic director, the teams are doing great, from that global perspective from your chair. Um, how do you challenge yourself? Are you looking at adding some new sports and trying to get them on that, for lack of a better word, championship track? Is it for you? Is it focusing on, improving the facilities? What's on your challenge list from the AD perspective?
Yeah, I think the staff has really come together as a group. Like we're pretty honed in on our vision. Everybody's pretty excited about it, which is to be a leading institution in performance and meaningful student athlete experience. Having both sides of that, and my staff is more in the weeds of what that means. We have definitions for those. I think we might have touched on those last time we talked in that culture deck, but so it's interesting for me because I mentioned like this when we started this, the scope was just so big. Add teams, add them fast, make them big. Let's see what they can do. And we did add 2 new teams this year. So they're getting off the ground. They're spring sports. So we're just going to start seeing them in season in February. We added women's flag football and men's lacrosse. And, they're in a different place than like a track or wrestling or rugby or a women's lacrosse but it's right trying to use the same model. So having those discussions with those new coaches. But for me, like it's a daily challenge of I'm here to serve our student athletes and our coaches. And so really it's observing, listening. I like it a little bit more now that we're talking about more in the weeds system stuff details. Like I think that's what I'm better at. But the conversations we're having are just so deep and they're really solid conversations as far as like think rugby, who's had like years and years and years of national success, and I can still have a conversation with my men's and women's rugby coach on what we still need to fine tune to stay sharp. We might be talking about assistant coaching structure. We made a big change in our men's program, going with the director of rugby instead of the way we had it, creating some more synergies within our club and varsity programs. Our women's rugby coach, he's been around for a year with us now, and he made some really detailed changes that gave us some pretty good gains in the classroom. And so I enjoy those conversations, but you're not talking about these huge facility projects anymore. We're talking about my semi-annual reviews that I give my staff. Like one of the specific questions is, what systems-based bottleneck do you experience in your job that you feel like prevents your success? Like we're talking about minute things, and that's what I'm here to kind of fix for them, so they don't feel like they're held up by anything that they don't need to be held up by.
No, sounds again like you're just right on track with continued success. It's not gonna You're not gonna see that fall off. To wrap up today's segment, we might have some listeners that are unfamiliar with Life University. So, take the next 2 minutes. Where tell them where it is, what kind of college it is, and how they can find out more information.
Yeah, Life University is just north of Atlanta in Marietta, Georgia. NAI institution. If you don't know what NAI is, it's to me the exact same as either D3 or D2. We do offer scholarships, but we're competing with the best of the best D2s and D3s. It's just kind of student athlete preference at that point. We have a very large chiropractic student population. We have about 800 undergrad students on the Life University campus, although I would say 80% of those are student athletes. But 23 sports. And last year, I think we had 14 individual national champions. We had 4 team national championships. We were 7th in the country of comprehensive like department success. Department GPA over 3.0. We're just really, really proud of the progress that we've made. And, the one thing that I probably don't talk enough about, but I'll take this opportunity to talk about it, is the most talented coaches are right here on this campus. I can't say enough about the head coaches that I'm blessed with working with. They're brilliant people. They are great people to work with. The things that they do with the resources that they have is just incredible. And so um, it's the people drive that success, and I'm just lucky to be a part of it. So.
Oh, no, absolutely. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their network, maybe find out more about how you do things, what's the best way they can get hold of you?
They can email me, jayme.pendergast@life.edu. Big Twitter fan. That's where I get most of my content, leadership content. Same there, or follow Life U Athletics on any of our social media platforms. Learn a lot about what our student athletes and our coaches and our departments doing. Um, as I mentioned in that vision, we don't want to just be a leading institution in performance, but we're looking to differentiate ourselves from all of the others, small college institutions and the experience we provide our student athletes. So, I think you'll learn a lot about what we do in that space, which is, we have sports chiropractic and we have sports nutrition and we do mental health counseling and we do mental skills training. There's just so many different aspects that we bring to our student athletes that we pride ourselves on. And we feel like really differentiate a Life University student athlete experience from that of maybe some of our peer institutions.
Well, again, listening to you makes me excited and want to get back to college myself. But appreciate you sharing with our listeners, and all the best as we continue into the 2024. We're into spring sports now. But thanks for sharing. We'll look forward to your next time on Super Tuesday.
Thanks, Jake.
For listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Come back next Tuesday for another great guest and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Well, check out Jayme Pendergast. She's on Twitter. And again, she's the director of athletics at Life University in Marietta, Georgia. Before we go, we do want to give our sponsors one more shout out. Just a reminder, I used every single one of these companies as an athletic director. That's why I feel good about sharing them with you. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com to get signed up. We'd like to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper's the official social media graphics solution for us. If you want to make world-class content for your social media channel, go to gipper.com. We want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com. See all the ways that they can help you and your program. We'd like to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. It's a great way to show off your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. Snapraise.com. We want to thank Athletic Surveys from LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, or your parents, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. And we want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is something I used every single day as an athletic director. It was fantastic, and you're going to love it too. Go to homecampus.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on Super Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast.